as we look ahead to this winter storm coming this weekend. I want to welcome in everybody that's watching across the Carolina Weather Group platforms, including on the Carolina Weather Net, on our sister platforms, and for those of you watching on our YouTube, hello to you as well. Thank you so much for liking and subscribing. We want to jump right into what can be expected from the storm before we get into some of the insights that our panelists have, as well as answering your thoughts and questions. So I'm going to tuck them away for just a moment, and we are going to set up the big picture here as we kick things off on this Thursday night. The National Weather Service has issued winter storm watches for the areas in blue on your screen. This include Charlotte, North Carolina, Greenville, South Carolina, Spartanburg, Asheville. It extends down south towards Columbia, stops just a little shy, but northern Columbia Metro, you have this winter storm watch that goes into effect Saturday night and continues through Sunday because of the anticipated impacts from snow, ice, and other winter precipitation that we'll be walking you through here in just a moment. We're also going to be watching for this winter storm watch to more than likely be extended into other areas. So if you're joining us tonight from Winston-Salem, from Greensboro, from Boone and Blowing Rock, we'll explain when you can anticipate seeing some winter weather here coming up in the next few minutes. Let's start by looking at the model runs. And I want to tell everybody right off the front here, model runs are just anticipations of what computers think we could see. So this is one particular model run. There are other scenarios, but we're going to use it to kind of set up what's at play here as we make our way through Saturday into Saturday night. As you're heading to bed after dinner hours, Western North Carolina, starting in the higher elevations, you're going to start to see some of the first snowflakes falling across the area. And then it's really during the overnight hours through early Sunday morning when that precipitation moves on in. We're tracking a low that is going to be coming across the southeast, and the positioning of that low will really determine where this rain snow line sets up. So in this particular moment in time right here, as we are looking ahead to the overnight hours, you can see that if the low tracks far enough south, we will see more areas with more snow. Now, we are not talking snow in Charleston. I need to say that, but we are talking about snow, of course, in Western North Carolina. And the big question is going to be that I-85 corridor. So as we play this forward, you can begin to see we're going to get some mixing in of warm air. And so what turns on the screen into red and purple, this is your sleet, your ice, and your freezing rain. Things that we should not shrug off, but they're really hard to pinpoint still 72 hours out. You're continuing to see now precipitation across much of the Carolinas, more snow across Western North Carolina, and even some more snow that could wrap back in by the time this is all said and done in places like Charlotte, as the low continues to track over the region, then becoming another problem for the Northeast and the Mid-Atlantic. Let's rewind that and show it to you one more time here, because what I want to show you, let's look at Charlotte, North Carolina, because this is where we have some questions and some uncertainties remaining on what type of precipitation we'll see. But watch how many times the precipitation changes in Charlotte on this computer model. It goes from rain to snow to sleet to freezing rain, and then maybe ice mixing back in before last licks of snow move on out. So that could leave us with a whole combination of things in places, not just Charlotte, but Charlotte is kind of the figurehead of where we could see on the northern half of Mecklenburg County a completely different story than the southern half of Mecklenburg County. We'll talk more about those model runs coming up, but the positioning of that low to be determined, and is going to be key to determine who exactly gets what type of precipitation. But here's a good look at where we can expect to see impacts. This is the probability the National Weather Service puts out of where they could be issuing winter storm warnings. That's where the watch gets upgraded to something that is happening and taking place. And of course, with 100% confidence, we can say that the mountains, the higher elevations of Western North Carolina and into those ridges of upstate South Carolina, you are going to see a winter storm this weekend. It's those probabilities that begin to drop off as we come into that I-85 corridor in Charlotte and in the Triad, where our confidence goes from over 80% to maybe 50%, and then decreasing as you make your way further to the south and to the east. We know you have lots of questions about what it could look like for places, including Raleigh-Durham. We'll try to get to those coming up. Here is a look at the official National Weather Service forecast on this Thursday night. This is what the forecast at the National Weather Service thinks. And while they might be calling for 11 inches of snow in Asheville, 10 inches in Hickory, 4 inches in Charlotte, There are other scenarios on the table that our panel will be walking you through in tonight's extended episode that could make these numbers go up or potentially probably down. And again, I draw you into my home turf here in Mecklenburg County, where you have a little bit of yellow showing you maybe 6 inches up by Lake Norman, but then that number is dropping down towards that 3-2 range as you make your way to the Union County, North Carolina line. Let's talk about the ice. This is really where my concerns are. Whether you get 2 or 3 inches of snow is not going to make a huge difference, but getting a tenth of an inch of ice or a quarter of an inch of ice, that's a huge game changer. And you can see places like Charlotte are going to be right there in that critical transition zone between rain and snow. And if we get just the right ingredients to make ice, we could be talking about down power lines, down trees, and people who are looking for heat amongst this really cold weekend. And that could also extend into portions of South Carolina. This could shift. It may not be an ice storm for Charlotte. We still have uncertainty 72 hours out, but we want to show you the ice potential from Shelby to Greensboro into Raleigh, because this is certainly a factor that you should be prepping for as we still have Friday and Saturday ahead of this storm arrival. All right, let's talk about South Carolina. Looking now again at the National Weather Service, you can see 8 inches of snow potential there in those highest elevations right up against the North Carolina border, dropping down to 6 inches as the elevation brings it down into the metropolitan areas of Greenville and Spartanburg along that, yet again, I-85 corridor. That really sets up so many times, as you've heard us talk about, that transition zone. Now, the National Weather Service is still calling for 2 inches in Anderson and maybe an inch of snow to the north of Columbia, 3-4 inches in places like Rock Hill or York County. But again, it's not all snow in some of these places. We're also going to be watching for the potential of ice. So you can see how the National Weather Service South Carolina map matches up with the North Carolina map from the National Weather Service, where in that greater Charlotte metro area, here in this case, Lancaster County, we are looking at a 1/4 inch of ice. This again could shift, but if somebody ends up with a 1/4 inch of ice, that is going to be certainly very memorable. The other thing I'll point out as we are looking at the ice potential across so much of South Carolina, in the opinion of the National Weather Service, there could be portions of the I-95 corridor that sees a little bit of icing mixed in with their rain when temperatures get just cold enough. So we will be keeping a close eye on this, and I want to bring back in the rest of our panel and remind everybody that you can find updates on this forecast throughout the next couple of days by liking and subscribing to the Carolina Weather Group on YouTube and all of our platforms. But let me bring in our panel, guys, because